Right, this is going to be another episode of the best damn league show, period. I did the thing on the last episode about how Americans insist on that part. And part of the reason I did drop it, as I say, is it's full stop in it. That's just what it means at the end there. So I will just put that out there. Obviously, that is not Dom. He will be here at some point in time. But here's the thing. I like to keep it so you never know when he's going to appear, when he just, turns up. Gets to be the life of the party and then just leaves out of a back door. And then next week we just have the substitute replacement teacher, as it were. So this episode's replacement teacher that we won't be shoving into a closet. That's one thing. One thing I actually do think, Keire, as a quick aside, is, you see all these crazy videos on Twitter, especially the ones from America, mate, where people are just actually like bitch slapping their teacher in school or like intimidating. I can't even comprehend that, mate, because the joke is the only teacher you would ever have considered doing that to was the supply teacher / the substitute teacher. Maybe one of those ones, where they're like literally like the joke is that if that isn't their job, they'd be like backup vicar or something, because they're all so mild mannered, aren't they? And like no like presence. And so that's the sort of person you might have done something naughty, like lock the door when they're in the closet or something like that. But the idea you'd ever just be like, yeah, I'd fuck you up. Like I can't. That makes me know the Zoomer is a different creature fundamentally to me, because I can't even comprehend that. Because the days when I went to school, like corporal punishment had ended, but they sort of still had like the attitude as if it hadn't. So like they didn't even need to beat you, mate. Just the flex of some like 50-year-old guy who probably was in like World War II. Like, you know what I mean? Like that kept you in line. Put it that way. That kept you in line. You never even imagined trash talking that guy. I can't even believe this is the world we live in now.
Yeah,
now, speaking
100%.
of trash talking authority figures, let's get into the LEC, because everyone knows. What's good is here, because we've done enough episodes by now, surely anyone who doesn't like you or can't understand your accent just doesn't watch the episode. Like, you surely not all still getting tricked to watch, like, oh my God, why is he talking trash? Like, people know what episode they're looking forward to. So here's the best thing. We'll just start with the obvious juicy target, because as someone who historically would have been considered a Fnatic hater. Now, to be fair, I will point out, one, I was always a very good friend of Soaz's for many years. And two, I actually obviously was loving them when they had fucking upset, didn't they? It was mainly obviously the fact that Reckless played their whole Brazilian career, and the fact that early on there was the Expect Fraggen rivalry that people think I hate Fnatic. But I can't lie. I have like very much like, if the shoe fits, wear it at this point in time. So I actually I've accepted I'm a Fnatic hater. And here's why, Keire. Because they've done it again. They've started another split. Really awesome. They're beating everyone. In theory, I have to say, based on like power ranking logic, they are the best team in the LEC, right? But mate, one, not only was I actually one of the few people not surprised by MSI, I actually think MSI is the most perfect example of who Fnatic is. Because you know what? They did actually do really well against top esports and actually have a chance in some of those games. But then they also got absolutely clowned on by Team Liquid, a way worse squad, just by not having any macro. Bro, the problem is, right, even though I should say now, 5-0, this is the number one team. My only point, all I'm waiting for is what, as we say in English, the other shoe to drop. And I just imagine it'll happen in the playoffs, Keire, because, hey, can you believe in this team? Can you believe in it? Like, in theory, they've always had this ceiling, right? They've always had this chance to be really good.
Bro, I've been calling this team the Jekyll and Hyde team of the LEC for
They
ages.
are the what they...
Since the going into the lower bracket run with Yamato and Upset, when Humanoid was the mid laner and they had Hylissang, they were the Jekyll and Hyde team.
Yeah. 2 years ago.
They just upgraded. They got more and more players that made them more and more Jekyll and Hyde. And they took a big risk getting rid of Trimby, who had his own like insane highs, but really, really bad lows. And they went and got a bit of stability in terms of June. That June guy is like, well, I call him Jan. He's like now he's earned the Eastern European, what do you call it, name? You know what I mean? Okay. He's in the squad now. So, but that guy is way, way better than he ever was in like the LCK, and he's very, very, very legit, and he pairs super well with Razork. But unfortunately, they did not end up with the archetypal stable Korean ADC. They've basically got like a depressive maniac as their ADC player, who, to be fair to him, right now is playing okay. But I always point this out with Noah. Noah doesn't have like little collapses like Humanoid and Razork, where it's like a game or a series. It's entire like tournaments or entire playoffs with this guy. And so with him on the team, and you've already got like very high variance pieces all over the place. I just don't believe in this team to be consistently good for any good period of time ever. It was like when TL beat them, I was just like, at this point, who hasn't? Like, who can't beat Fnatic? Like that's the question I've got. Is like, what team can't they lose to? Because they can always like trick you with the upswing of how they look, and the next game you're just like, yeah, like that was an absolutely disgraceful game. There was like no way that was ever going to be won, and it's the same team, and a lot of the same properties that make them like the really infectious, hyper aggressive skirmish based team is also their similar shortcomings. The one player I would say is mega like legit in terms of his consistency is Razork. Like Razork is unbelievable in terms of his ability to command himself to just be like good. He has like the highest correlation to he must play well for his team to win.
Oh,
like,
let's be real. He's probably the MVP of the LEC this year.
Yeah, without a doubt. Like without a shadow of a doubt. He literally cannot play bad and his team win. I've basically never seen it. So outside that, like Razork's unbelievable. They still have basically Fnatic's full thing is they have to bring up their floor. And they've got to basically pin down like their transitionary periods into like mid game and allocating like those types of resources, because as individuals, Oscarinin and Humanoid have like good ideas, but it's not always coherent with the team picture or with like each other or with the state of the given game. So I don't care what their scoreline is. I don't trust them, and I never will until I'm literally as illustrated to me that they can like earn that trust with actually like because at the end of the day the goal of this team is to beat G2, and behind the scenes they're supposed to be like scrim gods and smashing everybody. The trophy cabinet lies empty, and that's all that matters. If you have Razork Humanoid on your team, the goal's to win LEC. I don't care who the other three people are. You can blame them as much as you wish, but that is the goal. So
yeah, I mean, on that topic, like the kind of when you look at the fact you can't trust them, all I will say is this. I know they got away with it last split, barely, but the obvious thing I'm looking for this split, and I'm going to be modelling for Fnatic, if I look at like the assault course I expect them to go through to go to Worlds, I'll tell you the obvious angle. Fuck G2. G2 is going to be better than them. The obvious angle to me is this. The question for Fnatic is, you passed it this last split, but this time, can you pass the BDS test? Because, mate, if Team Liquid can beat you, BDS can fucking beat you as well. Like, that team right there almost looks tailor-made to beat fucking Fnatic, quite frankly. So I don't even go with the whole, will they beat G2? Because at the moment, all they do is just like, as we say in English, flatter to deceive. They get you hyped. They make you think it's going to be, it reminds me of the fucking UFC, mate. You know, in the UFC, you have that problem where obviously the title fight is different from even a contenders match. You have those people who excite you the whole time. They're knocking people out. They're submitting people. They have like a crazy contenders match. And you're thinking, hey, put him against the champion. This is awesome. And then you see in the title fight, they clam up or they just fuck up or mentally they're not there and they just lose and it's like an underwhelming match. That's the problem I have is like low key. I actually think in an ideal world, Fnatic would be like the third best European team. If they're really the second best team, I think we're in trouble a bit like MSI. It's just going to be a G2 only Worlds at that point in time.
So the only hope that I've got, and I'll always say this, right, okay, Oscarinin is like an exciting player in terms of like he has a defined strength in terms of you even seen it at MSI. Like when he was given a lead, he could take that lead and actually use it against someone as good as 369. Sure. That's not normal. That's like LPL winning like caliber like play. The problem is he has a fatal flaw. He's an idiot at laning. Like he's an absolute imbecile. Like, and one of his coaches was like talking to us once, and he said it's a big focus right now improving Oscar's lane control, lane management, and his like lane tactics. And I think he is like getting better at like those types of things. I actually think you can see like solid improvement, and that therefore the knock-on effect is Razork doesn't have to come to his lane as much. And, you can the snowball effect of like and the butterfly effect of decision making can change the team. I still do not think going into like playoffs and like big series, you can have someone on at ADC with the mental fragility that Noah has. Because ADC right now, for the past 2 years, is a huge quantity of like your team's like damage percentage. Like, you go look at like the LCK right now. Like even like Pays is like killing like getting like almost 70% of like Genji's kills in a win because he's just like being set up on a platform to like kill everyone in these team fights. But you just don't get that with Noah. You don't have that security. Any game could potentially at any point be a loss. And the bot lane itself, you've never seen them actually conquer like G2s in terms of just like getting the laning wins like off of them. It always requires Razork's intervention. And here, that is the thing. Me and Rich were like going back and forward, and actually, the way I was framing it, I think Rich convinced me the other way, because I had Fnatic above BDS originally, and then I came back on and I was like, no, because against the field, I actually think BDS is better. It's just in the singular like playoff match against Fnatic, they choke for some strange and unknown like reason. But that doesn't mean they're better than worse than Fnatic. It just means that's who they are that day. And I care about consistency more than I care about just who you are on any given day of the playoffs. So I do agree with you. Like and BDS is looking like pretty tight this season. But to be fair, so is Fnatic. I just don't trust them. I just do not trust them.
I'll pick up where you were talking about. The one player I do want to discuss a little bit is Noah, but I'd discuss it this way. I won't even make it about him specifically. It's more like you were doing there, how he fits into the team. I actually think in their team, I'm with you, mate. If I'm going to have an all-Korean bot lane, can man just be like SKs for fuck's sake? That's the type of bot lane you want. Like if you had that bot lane in Fnatic, mate, it would just be solo lane city. Like they'd have a fucking brilliant team. You'd know exactly what you were doing. The problem they have, like you say, is the Jun guy actually somewhat proved himself. Like fair player. Could see why they picked him up. Like whoever scouted him did a good job. The problem is the Noah player. And the reason why it's obvious he's the problem is because, mate, here's the thing. If you look at his downside, I could accept that if the upside was of equal proportion. Like the upside was like here's the obvious example. If Noah was like Exekick Keire, and he either like throws the game and his shit or gets caught, or he just carries the whole team fight, and it's like give him his champion, give him resources, load peel for it, then I could accept it. My problem is I feel like the Noah guy just either shits the bed and has like a 4 out of 10 game, or he just has like a 7 out of 10 game. Like I think for real, aside from that first week he was in Fnatic when everyone saw he was going crazy, oh my god, he has been killed, the kid here. Aside from that first week, mate, I swear people overrate his carry games. Like he has some all right ones. He's not a bad player, but I do think essentially, I actually do think low-key, he's one of the reasons why Fnatic isn't better and they can't challenge for the championship. I think there's a lot of players, they could even have LEC players, mate, that I feel like you could put in there and suddenly they'd be a really dangerous team. And then, look, the worst thing about that is, that's just in-game. The out-of-the-game stuff, in theory, is neither here nor there. But I do think it pairs quite badly with his performance in the game, because it makes it look like he's just a bit of a whiner when he loses, if you know what I mean. And even though we can't really know, it's not a thing in the team anyway, it's just never really a good sign, is it? Like, I think you've got to be pretty cracked to be a whiner / a negative personality in a team. You essentially have to be some forgiving level guy where you're just so good at the game, will put up with it. So I have to say, for real, he just seems like the most obvious person to replace. You know what I mean? Like for next year, I'll just sign someone else. Yeah.
I genuinely believe after MSI and you've seen like what was your lose condition at MSI, the number of lose conditions that guy was able to like find, how he was still on the team coming out of like MSI. Like I was genuinely surprised. It is an experiment. It's going to continue to it's going to continue to run its course, but the team is like capped out at wherever like Noah is at the day, because the modern game is just what it is. You just can't have your ADC dying. You can't have him just having really like off days. It's just really not kind of acceptable and the stuff. It's funny because like the other thing I was laughing about, you're talking about Raoul there, the bot lane. I would have even taken the BDS ADC Ice. Like you just want
He's pretty good,
yeah, you just want a stat stick. That's what when Noah's at his best, he's like a stat stick. He just plays the most like safe, conservative ADC style, like imaginable. You put him on a platform, you make space for him, you peel for him, he kills people. The problem is like bad games is like, oh, he just got one shot, dealt no damage. Oh my god, why was he standing there? Why did he flash in that direction? And here's the thing: he's one of the ADC players. I can't know this, but I watch a lot of ADC and I watch a lot of ADC PvEs. Not his, obviously, because of EU. He looks like one of those guys, the threat panics. Like when people come into like his pocket and he's like struggles to like keep his like threat assessment like coherent, and he'll just like move away from any target, regardless of whether or not it's actually a danger to killing them. So, I think the rest of the team I would actually like keep, but. Even with like Noah, I still think the expectation is to try and like win the championship for this team, because I think the rest of the talent on the team is very, very good.
Let's actually just pivot to SK Gaming, because obviously, like, I actually do think it's so interesting, the squad now, because like I say, to me before, I got the sense that the point of the team before was pretty much to be an Exakick team. Like, they basically, like, that's clearly the player to me they were grooming to be like the next star, they were building around. But then what's bizarre now is, maybe it's because he stuck with DOS for so long, now he's just gone completely. You know, they brought in this bot lane, which by the way, it is like the classic, like, just go even bot lane. It's just like a safe, stable bot, like Korean bot lane. But I tell you what, even though you've taken out a massive like win condition, in a way, I actually think this could be better in the long run, mate. Like, this team actually looks like they could be. I know that I do this every split with SK, but they look for real like they could be a sleeper now. Because here's the reason why I give them more credit than in past splits. The obvious problem is Isma is a rookie still. Like, he's barely played LEC. He's only played for 2 little small splits, and obviously you're not going to the finals. But like, first of all, I have seen growth from him over the time, and I actually think this Korean bot lane hopefully shores up some of the like Niski ints and stuff like that. Because mate, if you actually set this team up properly, like, Irrelevant can just be mega. I already know he can be a proper player. You can actually, in theory, carry now. In theory, now he's got this bot lane. The jungler, I do think has promise. Like, I think actually that was a decent enough signing. And the problem with Niski is this. Everyone's going to do that thing where they always just look when he fails. Like, oh, shit, it's like, that's who he's been the whole time, though. Like, we all know the upside. He'll have times during the split where he's really good. So, like, I actually feel like this is a sleeper team, mate. And obviously, it's a massive gamble for Summer. But if you think about it, there's a world where this team could be the 3rd team to grab the world spot or something. What do you think?
I think they are like the 3rd, 4th, like whoever's in 3rd, this is the team that like snipes you. The problem is like this is another team I trusted them even less with Exakick and DOS because of their like, well, particularly like Exakick's like tendencies, like his high variance playstyle in ADC. The thing is like I actually don't think people have given like enough like time on it because the sample size, like, I like him as a player because Rahel is also high variance. Like, he has like just a go forward like Gundam pilot like ADC. You actually seen it in the Fnatic game where he's on Israel. He like flies ease over the wall into Razork and kills himself and like throws the entire fight. And Exakick and Niski almost basically have the fight won. And if Rahel doesn't do that, they probably beat Fnatic on that day. But overall, I think he could be like a better player. We'll see over the average, but I think generally the team looks a lot better. You know, Izza's more experience. He's making like the way I would like describe it is like he's wasting less time on the map. He's like become a more complete jungler where he's not doing that like rookie thing where he like double backs on himself to cover a lane. Like his paths make more sense because it's now in the direction that he's farming, and he's like, you know, you begin to see. It's not that maybe he is being like piloted, but like he looks like he has his own agency in terms of like the direction of his like own like jungling. It looks a lot more. His game just looks way more like smoother, way more coherent to like game plans. Like him and Irrelevant top have probably been like the shining star of this team. I think Irrelevant's been pretty outstanding. The thing is
another LEC all team type player for the year.
So because they're doing quite well right now, this is going to sound well when I think Irrelevant is a little bit ELO Hell'd. And what I mean by that is he could potentially be on a team and be winning the LEC.
Dude, he could be on G2. That's not unfair to Broken Blade to say that.
Yeah,
It's a totally legit statement, yeah.
Yeah, so, but the whole thing is he better than Broken Blade? Well, we don't know because he hasn't kind of got the team yet to like prove it. So he's the type of guy that needs the Fnatic core, or he needs like the BDS core level of like players to prove that he's better than like, you know, Broken Blade and stuff like that. And he's not kind of got it. The SK Gaming team guys are good. I just think Irrelevant has ascended like beyond them. Like his aspirations now are that to like win, to be trying to win the LEC at a point, because I think he is basically at any given time a top 3 top laner. Very, very good champion pool, great matchup understanding, plays like both sides, weak side, strong side, very, very well, good carries, amazing at flanking, one of the best flanking players that we have in the LEC, has such a good understanding of like team fighting. You know, Niski's still Niski. What's really funny is Niski used to always have like the superpower of like pairing up with his jungler and like leveling his jungler's game up, and he's now more of this like streaky individual carry player where like you get like a couple of games of like hard carry Niski, and then it's like another couple of games of like the inting Niski, and he's less like this guy that will just drop waves to help his jungler like get farms and get into the enemy jungle. and he's kind of he's a more selfish player, but like in some ways he's like justified it. But the team's then more reliant on him carrying rather than his like junglers did. And like Mad Lions he used to help Elyoya carry. Now Niske is the vessel in which he attempts to try and like carry the team. So they are kind of like, for me, like the dark horse team that, you know, the third placers like need to watch out for. But by the end, like put it this way, if you know, Fnatic can't overcome BDS, there is a version of like Fnatic that can play in the day that could easily lose to SK Gaming. Like they almost just lost to them in that game just there. Like, and with that team, I think anything's possible. But you know, I wouldn't favour them. I think I would definitely have them as a solid fourth place team in terms of the power rankings right now. But you know, I think I took a bold decision getting rid of the bot lane like they did and took a big risk. It's paid off.
Yeah, the only thing I would say is I will be surprised if there's not one other team out there for next year that takes a gamble on exit kick. The key thing for me is just tell him already, mate, you aren't forgiven. You don't get to call the shots. The DOS guy's out. We pick the support. Now, do you want to play fucking League of Legends? Because if you do that, I'll be on board. I'm so fucking out on the DOS guy. That was fucking years ago anyone gave a fuck about him, mate. So let's pivot now. Because if there's ever a team that on these talk shows is my fucking problem child, it's obviously BDS, isn't it? And mate, they're never going to beat the allegations. Because here's the crazy thing about this team, right? If you never had watched BDS ever, if someone did the Men in Black, you know, like they deleted all your memory, and I just showed you any random week over this year, I'll just do this year, any random week this year of BDS games, you would watch it and you would be like that meme of the Jesse guy from Breaking Bad, like, he can't get away with it. But the thing is, if you watched every week of them play this year, you'd know that they literally do get away with it. They're not getting away with anything. They actually are, for real, one of the best. I keep saying this, they are the LCK team of the fucking LEC, mate. This team is so good at like winning the game they're losing, catching throws, waiting for someone to make a mistake. I actually genuinely, it's not even going to be a diss on any of the players. I actually think like this is why I always say it can't be that the players themselves just do this by them. This has to be something of how they like coach the game, the philosophy of the coaching staff, like how they've like been trained to conceptualize the game, modeling it, because they're just really good at it, Keire. Like essentially the only area I diss BDS is if I start talking about star players. Yeah, I think they lack star. The difference is what frustrates me is, in the same way as when I'm talking about Fnatic, I wish they had fucking macro and more structure. When I watch this team, it's like you got all the fucking structure in the macro. Where's the star players? Where's your Razork? Where's your humanoid? Like, I feel like if we could somehow fucking make an Archon out of the two teams, we'd have another G2 team. Because I have to say, the way they play the game, like that SK Gaming game, they had no business winning that fucking game. This team is just really good at like staying in the pocket, as it were. They just have fucking. This team is like the quarterback that knows it isn't my job to actually dodge the linebacker coming right at my head. My job is just get the open man, and it's on my fucking blockers to stop this guy. Like, they actually really can do that. I'm low-key impressed because people love to clown on the LECs. It's all clown fiestas. BDS games aren't clown fiestas, mate. They actually play some real league to me. I like it.
Because that joke is like greater than the sum of their parts doesn't really describe them that well for me. I think they're the perfect machine out of imperfect parts. Because if you look at each individual person, they're like playstyles that of extremities, but when they come together, they're a very coherent, like, conservative team. You know, Adam was like God's like top lane, roaming to mid as like Darius and all that. And yeah, his like range of his champion pool, he looked more just like a standard like top laner, which I was one of those people where I wanted him to do both, but now he's basically playing like the peeling Gragas, the Cassantes and stuff like that. He's very like effective like at them. He's playing his like team fight and team comp understanding is really impressive. As like Gragas gave like Ice the perfect platform to win with that Jinx game. No one could get on top of Ice. Adam was basically just like the overweight bouncer telling everyone, not the day, pal, as you're not getting near him. You know, Sheo, who I think is still somewhat the problem child on the team in terms of like, there are games of Sheo's where I'm just like, what are you doing, son? Like, it's mind-bogglingly like poor play, but he's still good. Like, Sheo like still has like good games. He plans well with the team. He plays very well around both his solo laners. Pretty good at like team fighting. Like, what do you call it? The only thing is like, of the people who are the choking allegations, again, he's probably like one of them in the big games. He shies away from the engages. Like, his like game like does fall about with it. I used to like Nuck is the player who I could never understood why this guy got the amount of rope that he did, but it finally paid off where Nuck has actually just somehow turned into one of the best mid laners in the league. It has like particular playstyle where he's very, very consistent, good at team fight. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Yeah, he is probably again one of the members who a bit of the choking like issues and stuff like that, but a lot of the criticism I used to like level at Nuck, and I can't do so anymore. The champion pool problems aren't as apparent. The majority of the games you get out on are like to a good to a very high standard. You know, laning and winning, executing winning lanes isn't his strength, but that's not really this like team's focus. So he ends up being quite a good fit. The bot lane's like pretty excellent. Ice is just a very good stat stick ADC, very standard, good on the hyper carries. Labrov, in my opinion, previous to this summer split, was the best player on this team. He was so excellent at all the different supports. You literally couldn't give him Blitzcrank. He had the best understanding of midsection. He just would terrorize teams over and over again. But this split, I actually think Labrov hasn't been anywhere near as good. Now, it's not the craziest amount of like sample size, but I would say this has been Labrov's like worst extended period of like individual form. His engages haven't been like quite as clean, but that is like where I would like talk about them as a team. This team's like team fighting is unbelievable. They're like go button is so good. They set themselves up like pretty well. It's just when they have the disaster moments in the game, you know, they go to the Baron when like everyone's on half health and they get wiped and stuff like that. That's what you see that and you think, oh, that's like that's really, really poor. But I put that more down to jitters. And the very like controlled, like standard game where BDS have like the objective in front of them and it isn't like, you know, game 5 of playoffs. And they're it's level heads, they make some really, really good decision making. And there's like very clear, you can see everyone's movements, they're common well, or they might not even be common well, they might just be very aware of what each other's, I call it like they've got really good team fight shape, they cover each other very, very, very well, and they just end up being like a very consistent and hard to beat team. They've been pretty impressive. Like the split, their wins are really, really, really good. The only thing I can say about them is, and this is why I do think they fall to Fnatic and G2 as their laning. Like, to their individual laning prowess, that's where it falls. Like, Nuck into Caps, Nuck into Humanoid. Like, their bot
Didn't
lane
you find it?
G2's.
Don't you think that's the moment when Nuck completely started whiling in his tweets to me? Is when he was trying to argue with me and then Dom, who jumped in, that, like, every part of his game and BDS's game is good. So if you remember, Dom even told him, like, your laning phase isn't even that good. What are you talking about? But he was just in denial, like, in his brain, like, yeah, that's to me. What are you talking about? Like, and it's like, mate, that's always been the weakness in this team. Not even, by the way, like, raw lane, like, they always lose. It's just like that phase of the game clearly isn't a strength of this team's, you know.
100%. And the full thing is, it's like, I always say this to people, there's very different thing to just sitting in a lane and like CS it, or like to me giving you 5th pick LeBlanc and you actually like winning the lane level 1 to 4 and then turning that into a gank with your jungler, then turning that into a roam into bot. You have to do the health trade, you have to do the lane positioning, the D ward, you have to like link up with your jungler. All those facets of the game aren't there for BDS. They don't do them, and there isn't the necessity. They don't see the necessity to do them. But I can't give you credit for things you don't do, because when other people do it, that's what makes them like good. That's when you see Humanoid Razork do the early game accelerations, or like Yike and Caps do them, you know. And that is a failing, or like a hole in their like game strength. And so yeah, like that is an area that like Nuck could look at and like learn to coordinate with like Shield, because there isn't a reason skill wise they can't. They just, it's a hole in their like their game knowledge or their view on what is important in the game. They don't think it matters as much. But I can tell you, it's what loses you some games against those teams, particularly.
Right, here's what we'll do. We'll bounce around the table a little bit. So let's just go to the comedic one of Carmine Corp, obviously. Because here's the problem with this squad, mate. This is one thing I'm really bored of. To be fair, I already knew Reddit worked this way anyway. You know, the whole premise of the upvote, downvote system in Reddit, the biggest problem with that approach is it actually incentivizes just saying things that are like, you already know are going to be well liked. In fact, it actually just encourages stealing comments. Let's be real. What happens is you see an interesting point elsewhere Twitter, but like buried in a thread, and then you wait for a new thread to happen where there's a topic along those lines, and then you say something like what I just put before, like, oh, maybe Noah isn't quite a good enough jungler, and then that's like the number one fucking post. So the problem is when narratives become established, I actually think that's the factor people miss about the whole Reddit narratives. The problem with why narratives get so sticky on Reddit is because once something becomes established, people keep saying it whether it's true or not, because they're thinking like, I'm just going to essentially mine more karma out of this comment. I'm just going to say the comment again, hope it's still popular and well received, and get more. So as a result, the problem is people who are like players, the narratives on players take ages to turn. It's like trying to turn a steamboat back in 1800 or something, mate. Like when you talk about Karmine Corp this split, one take that is blowing my mind, Keire, is you'll notice on past splits, I was willing to give it up that obviously Upset was struggling in this team. He was even having some outright bad games. He had some games, by the way, where he looked like when he was on Vitality, it looked like he just gave up on his team sometime, or felt like he did the old classic ADC thing of like, well, I'm not fucking going in again and dying. Fuck it, I'll be the one who leaves Reckless style last second in the fight. But here's what I can't handle. Is, mate, bearing in mind this is still a very scuffed team that is not going to be a Worlds team. Bro, are people still hating on Upset every single game? Like, at this point, if his team just loses the game, I don't even know if these people watch the game. They just go into the thread and type as though he was like the worst Giga Trash player to ever play in LEC. In fact, that whole thing that people keep repeating of like, he's finished 10th 3 times. They say that as though like you don't have to watch the game anymore, so you can just assume he went 0-17 every game. And it's I don't get this, mate. He's clearly not prime Upset, right? His team is mega scuffed, by the way. I actually think, for real, think this team is like him, the mid laner, and then that's about it. Like, it's not a lot to work with in the team, but he's had a few good games this split already, mate. I actually think, like, the one thing you can say about this team is, like, Upset looks decent, and the Vladdy guy actually is a prospect. Like, what do you think of Karmine Corp? Because I'm still a hater, don't worry about that.
No, so, like, just, like, fuck Karmine Corp, we'll get that one out there. But, like, it's just the team that, like, they threw out, man. They were, like, so cynical to, like, me. But, like, you know what? Like, the fans, like, I follow them, cheer for them, whatever. But, like, because I watched like a lot of Korean like solo queue. Okay. I seen like Kana was still playing, and I was like, he still looks fine, good at like range matchups. When he on Jax, he was like still like decent, stuff like that. But like hardly the world beater, like I would have been more impressed if they had literally just got some LCK amateur guy and just like rolled the dice on them, because that would have been a better experiment than going and getting Kana, which is one of the most like known quantities in all of Korean esports, may I add, by the way. Like who this guy is. They went and got Owner. So Owner is a very narrow player, but what he is like narrow at, he's actually good. Like mid hybrid bruiser junglers, like Owner's like good at playing them. He's good at like playing for like lanes early. He's basically like a not really bad, but like a bad version and less flexible version of like Razork, where he likes to.
You mean closer? You said Owner, but you meant closer. Sorry, I know what you meant. It's all good.
Yeah, closer. Apologies on that thing.
It's all good.
So he's had some like decent like showings, but he still has his like flaws of like poor team fighting, overly aggressive engages. Doesn't like, for example, what I talked about, Adam on Gragas peeling for his like ADC closer, like he just wants to dive onto the enemy team's ADC rather than maybe sometimes sitting on top of his. So the understanding sometimes not there. Vladdy. So Vladdy's actually one of the guys that I watched a lot. Oh, I've seen a lot because I seen him with Celeste, and I basically said that like, this guy's like kind of carried, like, but in terms of like Celeste, the bus driver, right, on that team. But for a guy that was getting carried, like he was doing like, you know what I mean? He was trying to like grab the game himself and like front run. It's just like Celeste was like killing people quicker than them. And you know what? I was like, this is the type of person who you you basically hand this team situation and you just write them a blank check and just be like, do what you want, like play, like this is just like a learning year for him, like in terms of like like can you like lane into the other mid laners in the LEC? Like how can you vibe with a jungler? What are you going to be at like technical tier 1? And know what, mate? He's like kind of grabbed it by both hands and he's doing pretty good. Respect to him, because put it this way, there isn't a lot of rhyme or reason to people who can and can't make the jump. But if you can make the jump, I have got like a lot of respect for you, because I think a lot of people do undermine sometimes how big the gap can be. And if you come into a team that's a shit show like this, like, and you're still looking decent, more props to you. I think Vladdy's been good. so I was like hypercritical of Upset and Winter and Spring. I think there's probably the worst periods of play I've ever seen from him, right? But yeah, I think in this one he's let floors way up. You don't get the ultra highs anymore. But like, you've seen it. Mad Lions thought they could just like stall out and play a free game into Upset's Jinx. Got caught. You know what I mean? Like they got lazy, started playing like idiots, make mistakes, and Carmine Core caught the throw. Like, was it a picture perfect game? No, but you know what I mean? Like they got it over the line. Upset played the team fights well, outputted the damage. Standard Upset stuff. Targamas is still shambolic. Like the joke is like I always on the shows with Rich. I push back that I like Targamas more than I actually do, just to wind them up, because we've got Rich absolutely despises like Targamas, but like I'll be real with you, mate. Like that, he's not good. Like his fall from where he was as a player on G2 is one of the greatest declines in terms of like was potentially the best or second best support in EU to wow.
No, I always say it. The more that Targamas plays League of Legends, the more I just think, one, props to Flackett. You're actually better than I ever understood. And two, Dylan Falco, you are a genius. Like, you just are, mate. Like, that's some, like, Jack from Cloud9 level shit where, like, you sort of, like, play the Zazel guy just enough he looks like he could be the next top support. Then you sell him cynically for, like, millions or whatever to EG. Like, you want to buy this player? And then the second they leave, like, it's like some actual second-hand car dealer, mate. The second they get off the lot, it's like, as long as they get around the corner, that's when it can start spotting. It's like, too late, it's off the lot, you bought it, the car bought, no refunds. Like, that's how you do it with this guy, because that's Targama's fucking mate. Holy shit.
But the one thing I will always give is like, I do think he's bad, but it is very reductive, like just being like, oh, and here's Targamas playing badly, and here's like Targamas playing badly, because like his problems are so beyond just like Targamas or like someone playing badly. Because I've seen so many teams in the LEC do well with people playing badly. We had like, misfits of old, but Mercer was playing badly like all the time, or like during periods of it. The games are still like winnable. Like people can make mistakes. Hillisang's playing badly every second of his life, and folk are trying to drag his decrepit corpse around the place. So there's more than just ha. Targamas is bad here, but he is like a pretty like poor player. I don't even know like if his career can go anywhere inside the LEC any further. Like I don't see the point in gambling on him any further than this. His team is basically just like, for me, I'll be real with you, this is just like Upset advertising to other teams that hopefully he can stay within the LEC, because Kallista's going to replace him. If Kallista doesn't replace him, I think it'll be one of the weirdest things to ever happen. And Vladdy is basically going to just as an advertising for how good can you be at tier 1 League of Legends. The one thing is like, if you are actually going to have closer on the team, the coaching staff are going to have to try and like either just like treat it like as an experiment, or like cause them to diversify, because you just can't have them play the same champions over and over and over again and KC ever actually be
Dude, I'd go one further. What I would ask is this is the one I don't get, is I understand the idea you didn't think the Bo experiment worked. Tell me one thing about Closer in 2024 that makes him an upgrade over Bo. That's the part I don't get, Keire. He was never some macro with... The joke is, in the modern day, he's a worse version of Bo. Like, I don't get that move at all, mate. I don't mind if another team gambled, one of the teams is busted, whatever. That's fine. If but I don't get why this team signed him, though. That's the weirdest one to me.
The only thing I could think of was they like got VODs of his, and he was like, his comms were good, and they think that he can like fix like a comms, like a talking like issue within the team, that like maybe Vladdy's quiet and Kana's not going to speak in the top side, so they need another voice who like speaks, and Bo wasn't supplying that in like the team, and then Closer's got like good comms because of like they requested them from teams and listened to them. That's the only angle. And even then I was like, a list of 25 people that play in the ERLs were like none of them like viable prospects. It had to be Closer. I don't know, but he's here now, so
too late now, isn't it?
Yeah, too late. We are. They got the jungler and what they deserved. Yeah.
Yes. Right. What about this then? Another team that I think is interesting is if you are a Vitality fan I actually think you have been baited so fucking hard because every arrow pointed up, right, coming into this split. You think to yourself, mate, they actually were already looking half decent by the time they got to the playoffs. They probably could themselves have been in the finals. They could have beaten Fnatic and done a little run. And then you look, that whole drama about the Linkas guy, because there was that whole thing of like Carbon Cop, hey, it should be ours. What's going on here? This is drama. Was he poached? Was he not? It made you hype him and think, oh, holy fuck, what if this guy's like secretly going to be like the third best jungler in the LEC? And then he's joining the team that really needs a jungle. Holy shit, this could be it. And it just hasn't manifested so far. So where are you at on this team? Because like this is the one where I have like the fucking UFO, but I want to believe. But when I watch them in the server, I can't. You know what I mean?
So
I want to believe so badly, mate.
Photon's like ability to like win out like laning matchups is for reasons we don't know is regressed. He's just I think he's gotten worse at it.
Oh, he's bad this split, but he was good before. Yeah, of course.
Beforehand, but that's what I'm saying. So like, it's so sad to have seen that regression because everyone's got to remember because Photon was so good, people talked about him as if he's not a rookie in terms of like progressing forward. Like the hope of Photon is for him to continuously get better. I'm not talking about the local doping thing where like player trajectory just must keep going up, but like. It's so random. Sometimes Photon will have a split and it's just like, wow, one of the best laners you've seen, undeniable, like Prius. Like, he's getting counterpicked all the time and he's still winning. And then the next again split, it's just like, oh, he lost. Then he played that like poorly. He kind of like was invisible in that there. And what's really weird is I actually think, because being on a losing team as a jungler is like one of the hardest things to analyze. So I watched lots of Vit VODs and I've been watching like Linkas or Linsas and I've been like looking and I've been trying to isolate and look at him. I actually do think he's playing well. Like I actually do think he's playing like pretty well. But the problem is there's situations where like the map is just fallen to absolute like pieces. And this is coming from the fact of like Vithio's laning and like ability. Like last split, the laning for Vithio was the best it had like been.
Oh, easy, yeah.
And now it's just completely in the bin once again. And not just like bad games from Vithio, just like really, really, really like terrible games. Like that, just like, you know, it's going on to like chain and like dying, then resetting on the map, then caught again. And then if your mid laner's dying and your jungler, there's nothing more tilting, but it's hard to hold the map together. And then you've got the other man. The man in black, the pale horse rider, the rider of the apocalypse.
Support by any chance?
Yeah, Hell'd is like, you know.
I guess that's him when he plays Rel. That's when he's like the fourth horseman of the apocalypse. He is outrageous, isn't he? Mate, the worst thing about this guy is, because of his highs and the fact he's been a champion and had all those international runs, I feel like if you talk about that metaphor of like giving him enough rope to hang himself, this guy gets the longest rope of all time, but he always hangs himself at the end. The question is just which split, because holy bro, like it's like every year he just has a split he giga ints.
And the thing is I was like, I've spoken to Mac before, and like I do actually respect like for what like speaking to him. Seems like a very very capable guy. Sure. Like Pad as well. Like looked at his like pedigree, what he's done. Very capable guy. I got mega tilted when I read that. You guys don't appreciate the amount of space that Hell'd's creating. I was like, yeah, he's creating a fucking space inside his ADC's head where he's assassinating them every single game. Like it's not just like bad. There's level, as I've always said, there's levels to being bad. There's being bad and you can be carried. It's the chain inting, terrible, suicidal levels of like poor play, and they're not. But it's like they're not going anywhere. It's not like come on, Hell'd, rein it in.
Yes.
Maybe we only die 4 times today. It's like no double digits every single game. He's just like running it down and. It's getting to the point where it's so bad, I don't even know.
Why did you make him sound like some sort of fucked up Sherpa or something? Like, sorry, sir, I get 11 deaths this time. So please, please, just let us carry you, please. Because you are right. The problem with Hell'd is he'll never allow himself to be carried, will he? Like, the joke is he is the guy pulling the opposite direction. Like, he just can't win, can he?
Yeah, like, and that's the thing. I don't even know if like Karzi's like good at laning or that anymore, or like I'm not even sure what Karzi's laning is about. Like, it's because Hell'd's dead all the time, and it's like I'm like, what is going on? And so the team, you know, that like you said, when you get all the pieces in and you look at the coaching staff, you're thinking this is it. This is the launch pad for the upwards mobility, vitality rising, and the rocket exploded. Hell'd was like the pilot and he killed everyone at the NASA base. Like, that is the point we're at right now. And Carsey's in that position that like Larson's in, where like I wish I could grab their head and like shake it and explain to them, you will not be good forever. Like he is someone where like his level where he's like brought it to is really, really impressive. And he probably, if you were to put a gun to my head, I think he probably is still like the best ADC in Europe like right now. But that's not going to be eternal. Like that is not going to be like your window for winning will like close, and you don't want to be wasting it. Now, Vitality looked like the type of team where you wouldn't be like wasting it, but you know, you played with Hell'd last year in Mad Lions. You must have like some edicum on like what that was like. You need to be looking at like what it's like to play with them on Vitality and realizing you've got to like basically cut ties with this. It like can't continue, because to me, I'm going to say this, and it'll probably go on and win it anyway, but like, I don't think it's possible to win the LEC with Hell'd playing like this. Like, I genuinely think it can't be done. It's too crazy. And it's also just too crazy to have, like, a rookie jungler who you're trying to turn into like a star. Yeah, like, it's too mental.
By the way, if you combine the 2 points you made, it's even worse for the Linkcast guy, however you're supposed to say his name. Because he has to deal with Vethio and Dinnersang at the same time as a jungler. Like, come on, mate, that's a pretty tall order.
And this is an amazing meta for him, by the way. Like, he's insane inside this, like, farming AP, like, meta. He's, like, brilliant at, like, loads of these, like, champions. And, you know, Team Vitality have decided on a very different, like, design of, like, what the team can look. He's a mega flexible player, you know. Plays Ivern, stuff like that. Eventually, this team is going to become a cynical, like, 4 protect 1 team. Like, that is where, like the objective of the team is going to be. Like, their mid game can fall apart at any point because Hell'd can die on midsection. BTO's side laning was never his strength at any point in time whatsoever. Photon is still like pretty good at it. You don't see Photon do the mid roams as much as he did with like perks, and that was like a big thing of like, oh well, VTO's going to get the helps from like Photon, so he can get like his like niche carry picks through the lane. It's just not happening as much in this team for whatever design, for whatever reason it may be. And so, you know, the team is kind of just like left to each person's individual strength. And in the LEC, you need to be a bit more than that right now. You know, like team setups have come like quite far, and actually being like a good unit is like a pre-requirement to actually being successful in the LEC. The sad thing is I'm more like disappointed than like laughing at them. You know what I mean? Because I can't really like fault them for like their choices. It's more just like it didn't work, but I hope you see like the error of your ways and you like improve from here and don't just like scrap the full project.
I'm with you on the Photon take as well, because I actually do think that's one of the most tragic things. Like, the thing I found so impressive about him was, until this split, remember, he was also on the fucking bad Vitality that came 10th. Mate, this guy just looked ELO Hell'd the whole time. He was actually really good in Vitality. He was mega in this team, in my opinion, the whole time. Like, obviously, I mean Vitality, the one with upset last year, not this one now, obviously, as you say, the perks line. I actually think the Photon guy, I'm obviously incredibly biased, as you can tell, to people who are really good at laning, because I hate idiot fans who go, laning, anyone can do it. It's like, they can't, you moron. Like, I watch Chovy all day long just play like Farm Simulator and beat every player in the world. Like, it isn't, like, the people who are really, the problem with this is they're right in this sense, Keire. If you just take a random player in LEC or LPL, yes, they can all lane all right. The difference is the people who are really good at it are cracked though. And that Photon guy was good no matter who his jungler is. We've seen that so far. So that's also why it was a bummer. I was hoping if this Linkcast guy is like the truth and he comes in, there's another player. Suddenly maybe Photon doesn't just lane well, he carries the game off it. Maybe now when he picks his Jace. I'm watching an LPL game where you take over the game with the top laner and win the whole thing. So I agree, that's a bit of a bummer. If we flip it though, I'll tell you what, mate. I don't even, as much as I despise their fans, I don't actually take satisfaction in how shit Mad Lions is, Keire. Because there's 2 reasons why. One, the team last year, even though there's that story that they lost every fucking scrim, they are way better than this fucking Mad Lions is. And also, here's the biggest bummer of all. The one upside that this Mad Lions had in the first split that they had that success and made the final was they had like a BDS quality to the team where like the team played well though. They had like coherence, they clearly had a game, they looked well coached. By the way, they even had like the blueprint. Remember, they used to play perma through bot and then they'd like allow the mirroring guy to have crazy picks and sort of be a wildcat. Dude, they don't even do any of that stuff anymore. Yeah. It's crazy. They've actually like taken their whole game plan, screwed it up and like Kobe into the bin. Like, this team has nothing now. Like, you think about this, Keire. If I have a BDS tag team with like less than some of my parts, I'm not going to throw the whole fucking game plan out the window. Like, I actually think this team it's like as a team, they're inting the whole fucking strategy. Yeah. What is this?
Mate, I've never seen a self-sabotage like this. And here's the thing. And this is where, okay, the old guard, you know, your Hellies, your lawyers, okay, eventually, if people keep on doing bad things enough, they eventually have to be like criticised, because everyone wanted to rightfully give, you know, a lawyer credit for the choices that he made, you know, and stuff like that. Okay, right. But now the team is playing very, very differently, you know, and he picked all the players and stuff like that. Well, there needs to be some level of criticism at Elyoya, because there was a formula that worked and now it like doesn't. And here there's a massive problem with Mad Lion. They have one carry. Stupa is the only person who can carry games on that team. And then he has people who do not know how to carry, cannot carry a map, and Frescovi and Merwin. Now, Merwin's like an interesting player in terms of like, he's like fun to watch. He's enigmatic. Like, you know what I mean? You see like crazy and zany things. Sure. But you cannot give like Merwin resources and be rest assured that like, yeah, we're going to get the map into like winning positions. That is just not true of his like gameplay style. And then Frescovi's just, he's got better at aspects of the game. He's just not a good player. It's just not a good like tier 1 like League of Legends player in my opinion. And if you look at their games they lose and the positions that Frescovi like loses them from, they're pretty like shambolic. Like this guy, like inability to like and the consistency in which he cannot front run games on like LeBlancs and stuff, and like it's self-evident. You know what I mean? Like he just doesn't have like the knowledge, the precursory skills to consistently do it. And so if you can't trust them to like do it, you need to like move your game plan, because you just can't have people losing those like LeBlanc games. I think so, you know, one of the big things is like, so Supa, it's not that like Supa's like secretly he is the best ADC in Europe and Mad Lions is holding him back. I think he is a very, very good ADC. He might be top 4, top 3 ADC in the league, but he in himself is the only person that can reliably carry, along with Elyoya on his own like carry picks. And they deviated from that. And so they just, rather than their style being conquered by the other teams in the LEC, they just self-sabotaged. And it was like, if the only team that could beat them playing bot lane was Fnatic and G2. Right? They're the only teams. And Fnatic could do it because Razork's the best jungler in the league at playing around lanes. And G2 could do it because they have a ADC player who you have to ban 30 ADCs against them, or you just like literally can't enter lane as like a pre-requirement. So they just stopped doing that, and now they just don't win games of League of Legends anymore. And it's the most mind-boggling, perplexing, because another thing, everyone wanted to give credit to the coaching staff of this team and make it that they're like geniuses. And this is why I never talk about coaching staff ever, like periodly, like at all, because everyone needs to massively criticize this guy. Because like and like obviously that's not what like the discourse is turned into. You get like either like Yamato.
I'm with you though. Essentially, your point you're making is if you're gonna say, well, he must have done an awesome job in winter. Wow, what a great coach. If the team's then shit, you have to surely likewise be fair on the other side of the scale. Be like he must be to blame to some degree, right?
Yeah, exactly. And the degree to which he can or shouldn't like be blamed is so ethereal that I just do not touch the talking point. Right. But to me, if you look at this, there is some level of responsibility with him somewhat and Elyoya, because there is a winning formula. It could still probably beat a lot of the teams in the LEC, and maybe not the modern BDS. I think probably you wouldn't beat them as often anymore. But what you've got now is just a pile of dog shit. Like it's a steaming fucking turd. It's terrible. You've wasted it.
I'm with you. Top to bottom, this team has so many problems. Like, you're right. First things first, you have to start with El Yoya, because as far as we know, on every level, the project is. Dude, I've even heard from some of those interviews or some of those like coaches that worked with him. It's even implied he actually wanted this specific team also, so that he could like be the man whenever he wanted. Like, he could like call the game around himself. He could like fucking pick his picks when he wanted. He could have everything essentially. And so at that point, you can't do, like, I agree with you. You have to add that in. You can't look as though it's just 5 players, it's Football Manager, and go, well, Yoyo could be good if you put him on the team. It's like he chose to be here. He chose all these fuckers around. And for all we know, he's choosing this style of player. So if that's true, he has to be criticised, because not only was he one of the best junglers Europe had, he was even pretty good in earlier splits this year. But we all know that story. There's an alternate timeline where Mad Lies just said yes 2 years ago. And he's in G2 and he's won everything now. And he's like, fucking, the joke is like he himself could be the guy now. Like, maybe I can go to top 8 at World. All that jazz that G2 players think now. But obviously he isn't in that position. In fact, I actually think at the end of this year, he's got some really fucking hard conversations to have, mate, including in the mirror. Like, I don't know what he does, because here's the problem with this one. If he re-ups with this squad, mate, where's any hope? Because I'm with you. If you go to the rest of the players, the Merwin guy was always like entertainment. That was clearly, he's like a box office player. Like, his style is so crazy. It is fun. But the problem is, I'm with you. Like, even at his best, he was super streaky. And his game has fallen off a fucking cliff. It's actually terrible. Then the Frescovi guy, I told people this back in winter when they had their best ever run. All that got him through was in the playoffs. He did have a couple of games that were like, he had like an RE game. He had a couple of games that stick out. The one against Fnatic or whatever. You had a couple that everyone remembers, right? But all I'll tell you guys is, even when they were like a top team in the split, he was never doing any of that. That really was like the odd game, and he got to sort of live off that for a while. And then the worst is the bot lane, because I'm with you. Everyone's going to, and this is where I'm going to shock people, because I actually agree. Even though the super guy, I have to clown on, because he himself over-evaluated himself so much that first split and a half. But actually, I'm with you. He's actually had games where any other team set up, the ADC would have carried the game. On his, those kills meant nothing. They didn't even give him a chance to carry the game. And actually, the saddest player of all, easily, is Alvaro, mate. Because here's the thing. If you go back to that side select show that I did with Rich and Foxdrop, and obviously we would do, like, team of the split or whatever, I was deciding for that one in winter, do I pick Alvaro or Labrov? Those are the two. And in the end, I decided Labrov, and my logic was, the difference is, I can actually see with my eyes what Labrov's doing, whereas I could never fully know Alvaro's strength because they perma-played through bots. It's like he's always going to be here. He's always going to have agency. I mean, by the way, as his support, it's the dream that he can roam, he can make all the play. I tell you what, that fucking analytical lens is fucking aged so well. Because, as you say now, mate, when they don't play like that anymore.
I haven't got a clue.
This guy, like, I was going to do what I did with G2 a few years ago. The whole Flackhead thing, like, Flackhead, you're overrated. Shargamus, he's the truth. Like, I was that close to thinking maybe that's Alvaro's type. Mate, this guy's just dropped off a cliff. Where is this guy? He's just a whatever player. That looked for real like it could be one of those promising players to come in the LEC. Maybe he still can be, but fucking hell, that's a drop off. Whatever the opposite of a glope is, I don't know, fucking a dim down or something. Like, this guy's fucking, he's destroying his own stock. What's going on?
And the crazy thing is, when you actually look at the individual Aloya games, the like positives are still like there, but they're like marred. It has like the carry game on Zyra, like who's playing Zyra in the LEC. It can still flex into like the Ivern, and the Ivern games are like still good. They just weren't win, you know what I mean? But the problem is, it's the actual like holistic style of the people that he's chosen to play with, and how he himself is playing like the map. You know what I mean? Like the meta thinking of the actual team, or like in what you would call Korea, like the team color. You know what I mean? He's got his like team color like all wrong in terms of like who he should be like tying his career to. Him and Supa should be like holding hands and being like, this is me and you until we like die. And he's like out there trying to like be like, well, Merwin, would you like to attempt to carry this game from topside on your Cassante? Oh, would you look at that? We are 0-3. And it's like, I could understand, like, you could get the analytics out and like, oh, if we get the Cassante ahead on this wave and it's that. There is a level to which I will always agree that is true. But the problem is, League of Legends is a game of humans, and these champions are piloted by like humans with human tendencies. And as such, you must like hang it to like, not all things are the same. They are not all things of equality. So you do actually need to tie yourselves to the individuals that are on your team, not some mythical idea of what things can be.
Let's just do the G2 topic. Sadly, on these shows, even though it's the best team, so you'd think it'd be 20 minutes waxing lyrical, most of the time it's like 3 minutes, because it's just like, does anyone really believe they'll lose these games for real? Is the conversation half the time, right? Obviously, I will say, I don't believe anyone really had any panic stations last week. Like, doesn't everyone know that you get the MSI hangover? By the way, even some of those games were even some good games for the opposition. Like, everyone always assumes this team's going to course correct. So, do you have any reason to not believe that, Keire? Do you think that everything's all okay with G2?
Yeah, the only thing I care is, and it's been the entire time, the bot lane's just worse. They're just worse at players right now. So, like, BB, like, okay, so last year the problem was the bot lane was insane, outrageously so, like, way too good.
Sure.
And then Caps' like game was just fucked for some strange reason, and it only kind of got decent at like Worlds, and the rest of the year it was just like shambolic. Then the bot lane has literally had like against TES, it was like they looked in the mirror and like pep talked themselves. It was like, we are Mickey X and Hansama, and they smashed Jackie Love and Mako. And then they've done nothing like really else. And the thing is, like, Hans Sama still has that like superpower where you can't give him like 3 champions and you can always just pick Cog. But as like just an individual player, I think he's just been worse. I think Mickey X is the variance on his game is like all over the place. It's everywhere. He is still the best macro support by like miles. Like absolute miles like playing up like to the 3 lanes and setting up the map. He is the best, but like his engage angles weren't as good as like Labrov's this year. Like his like skirmish and stuff, like, you know, on specific picks he still has those big games, but he is not the player he was last year, where he was basically just able to command excellence, command like lane wins. He's like all over the place. The team to me though was like the rise of Caps. Like, the problem is if Caps plays well, like G2's for me is unbeatable. They can't be beat if like Caps is like playing a good lane. And basically they lost in the opening like weeks because like Caps had bad games, and those bad games coincided with bad bot lane games, and it was like, and then that was it. And then Caps have been playing better, still not the best ever, but like better now, and it looks like it's just going to be a return to norm, because once Caps gets his like level back, like Yikes, like the best or second best carry jungler. He's like the best or second best like support jungler. He's like the best or second best like jungler around lanes. BB has got so many like playoff counter picks. Like, BB does coast regular season 100%. I'm convinced he does it. Like, he does not, like, if he was the bus driver of a different team, the number of wins he would get, I'm like not that sure.
Sure.
But because he's on G2, he gets to the playoffs every single year, and then eventually just ramps up. You know, he has like he had that massive Kennen game, and he's got like a very, very serviceable champion pool. You know, he's got like the Asshole counter pack that even Zeus had to like deal with it, like MSI, very effective player. I think, you know, BB has been somewhat like not completely transformative, but you do see the you know, the pop-off games from like BB, like they're way more like consistent in terms of like internally consistent within the game, as in like he actually turns them into like wins. They're not just like good performances.
It's got to be one of his
like
best
losses.
splits in a lot of the whole time he's been in G2, maybe, right? Maybe his best.
Like his Camille game is like, the Camille game was like insane, where he could be like solo won like through the matchup. It's very, very impressive. And the problem is this team, when I'm talking about them, winning Europe is just, that's it. That's what they're supposed to do, right? Because this team's aspirations is to do great things on an international stage and try and like write their own page in the European legacy book. They are basically the team that is like trailblazing behind the previous G2 squad and trying to basically be better than them. And they're like, you know, it's a very, very difficult feat. They've got like a lot to improve on. And my big criticism of them, we have never had G2 where the top lane, jungler, mid and bottom are all like their levels all like good at a similar period of time.
Yes.
When one person's game's like really, really good, someone else is like having a bit of like a mare, and then when they then get really, really good, the other person steps back. Where I want to see all the G2 players like ramp up into like the playoffs and the spring finals, the EU Championship finals that qualify for Worlds. I want to see a version of G2 where it's like everyone is on like A to S tier form, and it's like you could win through any of the lanes in any given game, and the ball can be moved around the map like just so easily, because that's the version of G2 that I need to see to have confidence in them going further and doing things beyond the measures of just winning EU.
Yes. I mean, the example I would give would be if you look at the two dominant LPL teams of the last 2 years. So obviously now it's BLG with Knight and it was JDG with Knight before. If people watch those teams, the reason why those teams were so exceptional is they weren't just the best in their region. Like you'll say, every player could play well at the same time. Like the team just worked. Like the actual fit was crazy and everyone could be really good at the exact same. It's not like you do well in this game because you got your pick. I'll just like chill on this one. It's like they actually could all. I agree with you. That's actually the thing that's frustrated me about this G2 team. It's why I said after this last MSI, when you look at those T1 series, people are taking the fact they didn't actually like get it done and make the deep run in the tournament, and they're almost thinking this is like they're acting like European history is like you had that G2 team in 2019, 2020, you had Fnatic 2018, then you have to go back 10 years to get a good team. I don't think people gave G2 credit. Like if you actually consider how hard MSI is now compared to all tournaments, this team actually, at least in terms of potential, they're up there with any team that ever played in Europe. They're not as good as the G2 Super Team, but they're not that far off, mate. And with you, though, their problem is, though, there's always someone who's on like a fucking off split or an off meta or something. They're never quite in it. Because on the Mickey X one, let me just tunnel in on that a second. This is why, when they were at their peaks, I always thought Mickey X got really hard done by. I get part of it is because Fnatic fans were really wild about Hillsang. Because what they used to do is they used to act like Mickey X was poor man's Hillsang. And it's like, here's what I don't get about that. They do have similarities, but here's the reason I always personally fucked with Mickey X more. Because let's say I give Hillsang the credit, like he probably does have the most insane like carry support games, right? He has had single games where he just carry the whole game. Right? Mickey X, let's say he doesn't do it as often. I'd say he's more like 90% of that upside, right? But here's the difference, mate. If he's 90% of the upside, he's like 15% of the downside. You've never seen downside like Hillsang. Think about some of what we were talking about earlier in this episode. There's past ones where he was in Vitality and fucking all this stuff. Mad Lions. Like, sorry. This time's when he's had nightmare splits. Mickey's had splits where he wasn't the best, but like he's always competent. So I agree with you. The problem I have is this. I'll never go that far. He's never inting the game. But my problem is this. I actually do think that point you made there is what's killing his game, mate. Is this reminds me of the end of Perks. It's actually really disturbing, which is when you get this label, like, it's a macro wizard. People just start, like, thinking, like, you can make loads of mistakes in the game, and he's done this loads the last, like, month and a half or so, and then you can just pull yourself out of the fight at the end, like, look, I do the big genius move at the end, that means it's all fine, right? And the problem with that one, obviously, Keire, is, as you say, if you scale appropriately, I'm not supposed to be going, will that work against BDS and Fnatic? It does. The problem is, will that work against BLG? You know what? Will that work against T1? Like, that's the tough part, because that's where I worry.
Yeah, and that is really consideration, and that's why it was like so so frustrating, because like against T1 you've seen like Mickey X with the Poppy and he's dominating the game, like so ridiculous and so, and then Hansama fucks it all up, and then they go into the next one and it's like Hansama's like dominating the game, and then Mickey X has like the absolute horror like Nautilus game I think it was, and it's just like, you know what I mean? It's like because I remember there was a version of this bot lane where it was like the both of them together.
Oh, they were insane, dude. Last year, if people forget, last year going into MSI, this bot lane used to just run the LEC. They just like won every game. It felt like. Yeah,
they were averaging something like 3,000 gold lead at one point in winter, like at 10 minutes. So it's like, that's unheard of.
Yeah,
that's like it's the most like insane, like fucked up, like disturbing thing ever. Just how much better. They were the one thing. I don't know if they'll ever do it, but they're the two players I think that would benefit the most. And the only players I remember who'd done this was Sven and Vulcan. They done a 2-man boot camp in Korea where they like 2v. They played together to like masters and dual queued and to build up like their synergy. I actually think Mickey X and Hans are the players that should do that. Like together, like again to like reform it to build it back up. And the reason I was hypothesizing this is because I actually had heard about it from like the LPL duels that like play all the time, and where they will like the joke is like Ming would always ask Jackie Love because he hated his like whoever his ADC
sure.
But everyone else would like duel and stuff like that.
That's BM as fuck. I love that. I love that shit.
And so it was like so like, you know what I mean, they would all play when they had, and because scrims was like you were focusing on very like team bigger scale concepts, but you still had to come down again to do like the 2v2s and stuff like that. And so I feel like they need to find a way to like bring themselves like back up. And here's the thing, It's not that they're a bad bot lane. They're a fantastic bot lane. But it's like, it's the scale of things in Europe. You know what I mean? Their aspirations are so much higher than where everyone else's are. You've got to levy criticism that seems unfair, but it's because you know what they're possible of.
No.
And it's the window that they have to do it, because again, you know what I mean? This G2 team's not, all these 5 players are not going to be together forever, and they're not all going to be good forever. So, like, you know what I mean? You don't want to look back and be like, oh, you know what I mean?
By the way, you're probably even right. If you think about it, with how long Caps' career has been, this is one of the best years of his career. He's way better than he was the last 2 years. Like, you can't waste that, because actually, as MSI showed, by the way, there's essentially only Chovy and Knight, like, that are definitely better than Caps right now. Like, mate, I tell you what, if you want Worlds to come around tomorrow, fucking roll on, bring them all. Yagao, bring all these fuckers. Like, Caps can beat these guys. But I'm with you. If you add in, think of all the years where I've had to like downplay a Broken Blade because of the international performance. He's actually sort of got it together now. I'm with you, mate. If all the pieces came together at the right time, this team could really be something.
And that's just the, you know, and you've seen it against like T1 in the upper bracket game. The only like the scare like I have for them is like if the you know, the Fnatic like victory does end up like happening in like the summer, I don't think it's likely. You know what I mean? Like, how does that daunt them in terms of like their own like self-doubt? You know what I mean? I'm sure like their coach is supposedly fantastic. He'll keep them on like course, but you know what I mean? Their aspirations are like so high. I hope they don't like take winning the LEC like for like granted, because you know it's still got to be won in the server. The trophy that hasn't got G2 just written onto it and handed to them. They've still got a job to be done. They've still got a lot of effort to be put in.
What about, let's just do that. Obviously, you alluded to it earlier, but mate, it's hard enough out here being an upset defender, right, mate? Everyone's going to tell you that Larson is shit because Rogue is really bad, and has been, by the way, the whole time. Like, the worst thing about Rogue is at least Mad Lions had the winter split. You know what? At least some of these teams have them. This team's almost Carmine Corp level, where it's just permanent suffering. And the worst thing is, I always say this, mate, is even though, especially in the last split, Larson had a few games that were dodgy as fuck. He was all right in winter. He had some good games there. Spring, he was a bit dodgy. Here's the biggest problem with him as a player, mate, is I actually think he has a similar problem to my boy Upset, which is these guys are not made to play in bad teams. As in their style of play and their mentality, they are not going to 1v9 the game. It's not who they are as people. Like, they're the sort of people where you want to put them in like a team where things are comfy and it's the right sort. Then they'll shine, you know, because, mate, what a weird... Like, I actually think not only is almost everyone on this team tanked their value, but I think it's even going to affect Larson, mate. Like, going forwards... Is any team going to gamble and make this guy the centerpiece of their squad? I think it's really sad because almost everyone, including Larson to a lesser degree, has withered on the vine in this team. Like, this team is just a fucking black hole of suffering. I hate this team so much, mate.
And he signed till 2027.
Yeah, he signed that long contract too. Yeah.
So, like... It's so, like, you know what I mean, in terms of like both of those things, not only did you like trust the Rogue organization, right, and like co-sign yourself to like this team, right, you signed the longest possible fucking contract extension, like Bjergsen on TSM level, like you're going to be a franchise like player, which in a fucked up way I can like respect, but it's not much good for like in terms of your own individual, like, you know, again, Larson, I said the dreaded words a lot. I think I had Rogue like 6th or 7th. I was like, you know, a team with Larson on it can only be so bad. Well,
it's supposed to be a Flores, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I got showed a thing or two about an analysis, but I'll go through them. Like, okay, so I'll give him mad props. He has not some super hard carry, but like Finn has like done a job, right? He has been briefly brought in to basically just do a job, and he is actually trying to like put games to the best of his ability and like positive like positions. It just like the shit, like he's maybe like finding like a 52-53 like winning percentage like top lane matchup, and then like the bot lane's just like 0-7, and it's just like it doesn't matter. Like it doesn't matter like all the like little, you know, death by 1,000 cuts things he done in the top lane. Is what's going on bot lane is just too crazy. Marcoon's basically just tanked his entire jungle rep. Like this guy, the variance and I remember sitting with you many years ago, Thorin, and we were talking about Marcoon as one of the best junglers in the LEC, along with his ability with Nuke Duck to play the map was absolutely astounding. Well, where the fuck did that guy go? Because that guy, we ain't seen that guy in a long time. He is absolutely, and the weird thing is he still has that odd carry like pop-off game where you're like reminded that like he is like a very like skilled player. But then the next couple of games, you're just like, geez, that's like, what are those? Objective setups, basically non-existent. Team fighting, just not that good. Like, pathing to, like, weak points on the map. I will say, like, you know what I mean? As a jungler, having, like, possibly 2.5 losing lanes all the time ain't the best thing for showing your stuff, but his own individual game hasn't been it. Larson is basically just, like, living up to, like, the curse of, like, a great player that's just sat too long in like an org that he probably shouldn't have been with and probably should have like moved earlier. He's just kind of got to like live with these decisions now. I don't know. That is just the point is that basically Larson has got to he's got to try and be the best possible player he can be and attract other people to want to come play with him. That's what he's got to do. Tom shambolic.
Oh, he's gone. He's gone, mate. Yeah, he's done.
Like he heard about like what do you call it, the salary that you get for the service in the Greek military, and he's like, I think I'll just trade my LEC salary for that. He's gonna go level up as like Caitlyn along with Forgiven in the Greek military, because that's it. Like tier 1 LEC ADC is done for him, and if he ever comes back from this, the risk you are taking as an organisation makes no sense. In winter, I had soft hands, soft gloves on. I was like, oh, Zoaz, he's a rookie. You know, you can't expect that much.
Oh,
sure. Like, look at him. And then, like, spring and summer's happening, and I'm like, get this guy to fuck. Like, oh, this guy has some of the worst games of, like, support I've seen in the LEC and Tier 1 for a long time. They are terrible. I pointed out to Nymera and Rich, there's a game he plays in spring where he doesn't walk onto the other half of the map for, like, 22 minutes. Like mind-boggling how like bad it is. Like he doesn't de-ward, he doesn't like go into the other quadrant. It's like, wow, that is to have seen that in like a tier 1 like league is like pretty impressive. So I don't know where you can like kind of go with this team. It looks like you just basically like you keep Larson and maybe one other like person, Finn or Marcoon if you think he's salvageable, and you just full new team in because. And the thing was, I actually like predicted that they would be this bad because everyone had Carmine Core lower than them, and I was like, no, I can actually think of some positives of Carmine Core.
Sure.
I can't think of any positives of fucking Rogue. They're so bad.
Yeah, that's actually the saddest thing. Is that they are the team where I agree. There's just no upside. It's actually one of the only teams where like. After the first split, I just lost all hope completely. It's like, what is there to even hope on? By the way, speaking of which, we can transition to another team. I also think it's a joke that like Mad Lions had their run. Obviously, the Carmine Cup might end up being all right in this split. Mate, the other team with Rogue that is just eternal suffering is fucking GiantX, mate.
No. Mate,
it's the saddest thing. There's one player I'm going to give a little bit of props to, which is the Jackie's guy actually does deserve props. He actually, mate, he's essentially ELO Hell'd. Like, I didn't even know, I don't know that much about this guy, so I heard a little bit of hype. Actually, I'll give him props. He can carry games, mate. If you give him his picks and you don't play like an utter cretin, he can actually carry games, but mate, they're too heavy. He can't carry all the games, for fuck's sake. Like, this guy, for all I know, if he was actually on a proper... like, mate, if this guy played on Vitality, he might actually be getting, like, fucking all LEC, like, nomination or some shit. But fucking hell is he in suffering. This team is just bad, mate. This is bad.
No, and here's the thing, Thorin, right? Because I do find enjoyment out of GiantX, because it is my favourite example of, a star player attempting to carry absolute bombs. And I love watching this. I love watching Syphilis push the boulder up the hill and it just crushes him as it rolls back onto him. And he pushes the boulder all the way back up. Mate, I love watching the condemned star like just play. I loved watching it in Imp all those years with the bad LGD teams. I loved watching it in like Breathe. It's a sick part of my soul, right? That there is something really enjoyable about watching.
Oh, no, here's the thing, mate. I know what you mean. Like, what you have to learn if you're a fan of anyone except the best team is you got to take perverse pleasure out of trying a hard carry job. Yeah, of course. Like my boy Flame back in the day or whatever. You just got to just, even though you know it's harder for them, in a way, the reason why it's good is this. If they pull it off, it shows how insane they are. They've got to be really cracked out, obviously.
Oh yeah, and like this guy's got the biggest like individual carry games. Like they're absurd. Like the Varus game versus like Fnatic
Oh, yeah, of
genuinely might
course.
be the best
Oh,
played
he's
game.
killing it, mate.
Like and he loses, and
Yep.
he's absolutely outstanding. He like literally. The funny thing is, he goes to a side lane once that game. All three of his teammates die mid, just walking into like Fnatic. Game's
Classic.
over. Like. And here's the sad thing. This actually has a perverse thing because this is where you learn to not trust teammates, like the CLG double lift, where you end up that like evil thing of like not being able to like
Sure.
trust like teammates develops, and hopefully that cynicism doesn't like appear in them. But just to go through like the team, D'Antonio is just like whatever.
That's a meme to even sign him, bro, isn't it? Come on.
Like, here's the thing. I will be real. I can't say otherwise.
Go on.
He has actually been better.
He
than
had some
Odo
alright
in
games. He had some alright games.
He has actually been better than
that's
Odo in the
true.
games that he's played. But I'm saying that does not mean he will have been better than Odo across the period. It's just where Odo's own individual level was at. He has just been like better. But there's a full split yet to be played. Their jungler, it's hard to be worse than Peach, because Peach was at a level of a player of poor play I'd never seen, and so I actually think the jungler's like fine, but like it's one of those ones that's like why
have him? Yeah, what's the point? Basically, yeah.
Where is the like 2-3 years down? Like Jackie's potentially a year and a half down the line. The idea is that he's probably one of the best mid laners. That's where you look at him, and in the game, there's twinkling evidence that might be true. I don't see any of that for the jungler. The bot lane, Patrick just looks done as like a player, and I was always a big like Patrick guy, where I'd be like, great ADC pool, like franchise player. He's trying to win the LEC the hard way without the elite mid laner. But Patrick's own individual game right now is hooked. It's not great. He's not playing all that well. Even his like laning. Like, remember the days we used to always say Hansama and Patrick, they can pull out the Draven.
Of course.
You picture that guy pulling the Draven out these days, Thorin. Like, no,
I mean, it wasn't the one. I think maybe in winter. I think they even tried or maybe it was last year. I'm thinking of when he had Tag Armors. I remember there was a game where they actually like forced like a G2 style bot lane of Draven and something. They didn't even do anything, mate. Like, you're right. That era of like, if you give him that, it's over. Like, that's just Hansama now. You're right.
And remember, like, it was like against Fnatic, like 2 years ago, he had like the Nyla pick, and it was like crazy. I was like, well, none of that. We got none of that now. That's all gone. And then you've got Ignar, who, another one of those. Again, why is he here? Like, it's not that he's bad. Just it's like in tier 1 League of Legends, I think that I should be, when I talk about a player, I should be talking about what the person's good at and the positive qualities that they like bring to the team. And when I look at Ignar, I'm just like, likes to play engage, but I'm not even sure he's like eye for engage is that good. All I can say is he like does engage and he pulls the trigger and a team fight happens, but I'm not even sure it's like a good team fight at any given time, and it was like an appropriate time to take a team fight. He is going to start one because he's Ignar. He's the champion pool has came round for him, which is a good thing. Like, lots and lots of engages getting played, and that like suits him. He's not going to have to play enchanters and pretend to be someone he isn't. But this team inspires nothing apart from the fact of like Jackie's has had like 2 good weeks. But outside that, again, outside giving Jackie's a platform to improve on, another waste of time.
There's only one team left. And it is an interesting one, because obviously I've left Team Heretics till the end. Now, the problem I have with this team is this, Keire. You can't overcome, no matter how Zviru plays. Like, he actually was pretty good in those playoffs last, but I actually thought he did show play. The problem with this is, like, everyone who hated on the roster construction of this team, I have to say, you were right, I was wrong. Because when I look at this team, it really does have that factor where it's like, if you have to have 2 carries to win in the LEC, they can't ever win. Where are the 2 carries? Like, you know what I mean? Where are the 2 carries? Like, sometimes they have 0 carries. Sometimes they have 1 carry. Maybe they have 1.5. They never get to 2 carries, mate. Like, the problem with this team is like, and also maybe you could like min-max like that if we were talking like prime, like GiantX last year on Heretics. And it's also not the same GiantX. So like, there's a lot of factors on this team where it's like, you look at the roster on paper, you're like, that could. Then you watch them in the survey, you're like, it's not quite as good though, is it? So where are you at on this squad? Like, I have to say, that last split, they teased the fuck out of me, because they almost beat Fnatic if people didn't see that series. But that's not the team that I've seen come and play in the LEC now. Like, it's another team I want to believe in so badly, but I can't, mate. I can't.
This is like a team that is like a core, like you say, it's like a core without a star, and you take another core without a star, and you stuck them together. So you've now got no stars. Like, Flacked, okay. Respect to Flack's
Yeah.
name, by the way. Still out there playing,
Yeah.
okay. Flacked at no point in time should ever be your best player. And that sounds like a criticism,
No.
but it is actually something levied at the fact of, like, in terms of, like, winning games, that means you're
Mate, I'll tell you what, here's the obvious olive branch we'll give to the Flackhead fans. You know that discussion we had earlier about Fnatic? Mate, I'd take him over fucking Noah tomorrow.
Yeah.
Get him in the team. We could win the LEC if he joins, mate. Yeah.
Yeah, well, like, and that's, like, the consideration. I would 100% take him over, like, Noah. Just to go through them to the top, so, like, the problem is like, Wonder, there is, like, a wonder in people's, like, mind's eye of, like, this, he used to be, like, this carry, like, laning, like, player. That player, like, died.
Oh, he
like,
lives off that
ago.
still, mate. He is dining out on that fucking story that he's the carry top laner for years now. For years.
Yeah, and the games just don't actually happen on my screen. And
Yes.
for me, he needs to be that. Like, right now, Irrelevant is, like, what Wonder, like, used to be, like,
Yes,
ages ago when Wonder was playing on, like, Splice, where he's an overqualified top laner looking to join, like, the next great, like, team.
Yes.
But the problem is, like, Wonder needs to try and, like, be that player for this team, but he's, like, failing to do so. Where, like, every single game, it's like, was that everything you could have done, Wonder, to, like, win this game? I feel like he leaves, like, a lot on the table. Like, take more risks. You know what I mean? Like, ask for, like, stronger picks, because you're supposed to be one of the higher quality, like, players on this team, and it just generally, like, doesn't work out. Jankos is, like, someone where, like, overall, like, my criticism is, the thing is, last year, I wasn't as high on the Jankos. Like, I do think he, like, played, like, well, but he had, like, still had, like, weaknesses in terms of, like, team fighting, and those weaknesses, like, continued into this year, and then what he was good at, like, has gotten, like, worse. But I still think he's an LEC, like, caliber jungler. Like, compare him to, like, Marcoon, he looks like a fucking Jesus Christ walking on water. But you know what I mean? The meta that is right now, all these carry junglers, it was never Jankos' style. When you've got, like, these, like, types of star players, does a diversification of your jungle pool actually help, or are you better off to just play the style that you're best at? So, you know, I can't level, like, too much criticism in terms of, like, Jankos shouldn't be on this team, but it's got to be Jankos with players that is actually, like, worth, like, enabling. The biggest bait was, like, Zyru, because, like, he came in at the back of Perks, who was, like, career, like, the community perspective of his career, he was in the absolute, like, pits. And then he obviously had, like, a bunch of pop-off games, was, like, playing, like, rather well, like, big carry performances. But that trajectory had to, like, continue. And, like, many are rookies, it doesn't. And it's not that he's playing bad. That's the thing. It's not like he's playing, like terribly or anything like that. It's just the fact of, like, you know, front running in League of Legends as, like, a skill. It's a hard skill. It's one of the hardest, like, skills that's, like, left, like, within the game. Like, being able to allocate, like, resources within a specific matchup and use them to affect the map and accelerate plays at tier 1 is very, very hard. And Zyru's not as good as it this year. It's a little bit harder with all the ADCs mid, but you know what I mean. The mid lane has always been what of the 100 champions are you going to be playing on this patch, and right now it's ADCs, and that's what you've got to be able to, like, do. Has he been able to turn his hand to it as well as others? Not in my opinion. Flat, I can't level too much, like, criticism at him. I can, in the sense of, like, I think he maybe should, like, shape the team more around him, like, himself, in terms of, like, trying to, like, maybe possibly with, like, in terms of getting wins, like, ask for, like, more resources and demand more resources. Like, if you are the best player on this team and, like, Trimby behind you, like, be like that to Jankos, well, we're going to be Mad Lions-esque. Camp me. We are going to play around me. That's the only criticism that I can level at Flat, that full of, like, thing that's like, if you are the only good player, then put on the carry pants and ask for them. Like, demand the resources, like, come to you. But his own individual games, like, fine across the board, very serviceable, like, ADC. The person who's suffering the most in terms of, like, this, like, team is, like, Trimby. And he's actually, for me, in the same boat as Larson and Upset, where the better a team is that you put Trimby on, the more good you get out of him.
Dude, and think how crazy this is. When he was joining this team, one of the reasons it looked mega was Bro, half the teams in the LEC, the reason they're badly GM'd is, like with what we said about Vitality, you have a mismatch between jungle and support. Same with Bourne, fucking Targamas, same with Douglas and Hillers. You have all these players that have a mismatch, right? On paper, Trimby and GiantX, not only were they some of the best, they're fucking both Polish. You'd think this should be like the dream pairing where like they'd both unlock each other. And by the way, that could have even been a really cool angle to get around not having the stars. Like maybe they just play the map better, or they have some like genius moments when they group or something. That synergy isn't there. I don't know why, but it just isn't there, mate.
And this is the weird thing in Europe, right? Jungler support synergy is one of the worst aspects of European Legends. The best jungle support is a Spanish and a Korean.
Sure.
Like how the fuck is that possible? Who are literally been playing with each other for 2 splits? Why is that where we're at in the LEC? Come on. Like the guy didn't even fucking have a passport into the country a couple of minutes ago. He just walked across the Schengen area with his little Korean Boy Scout backpack. He was like, walked into the Fnatic office. It's like, you have to be the best support jungle duo. He's like, okay, my name is Jean. Here is my passport. Like, what is this? Like, how is that possible? And it frustrates me to so end because in the scale of tier 1 League of Legends, like the really good teams, almost all of them are defined by their jungle support, like how they use jungle support. You look at like TES, you look at like Gen G, you look at like BLG, T1, like how your jungle support like affect the map and play the map together because they're the mobile roles. That is the epitome of tier 1 League of Legends. And like, and again, it's not that they're bad. They do have positive elements to them. They do have like good aspects to their game. It's the fact that the caliber of the players that they need to like be at to progress this team forward, as you just want like more. Like for example, you know, I want to see like GiantX trying to like play and invade like enemy people's like jungle camps, but then he would have to be on the correct pick for that, and then Trimby would have to be playing on that, and invading jungle isn't something Trimby's always like done. So you would need to see new facets of their like game, and there's no evolution here, and so I feel like they're either a team that's in stagnation or decline. They'll continue to win games. They're still like a decent LEC team. It's just they were like a team that could have possibly been fighting SK Gaming for 4th, whereas now I think SK Gaming are most definitely either are going to be 4th.
And then there's one last angle on Heretics, which I'm sorry, it's just a downer we have to end the episode on, and it goes like this. Dude, that Peter fucking Dunn one just destroys all my interest in this team now. Like, bro, the whole point of this team is, it's like Vitality. I'm riding with the coach and his vision. If he's not going to be here anymore, then what's the fucking point? Essentially, this team, you were hyped for these 3 reasons. Peter Dunn, Perks. By the way, 2 of these are going to be completely gone very soon. And then the third one is what? Maybe GiantX. We just said, like, that's not fucking much work. That's the saddest thing, is like all the interest around this team has disappeared for me. So I'm not Dom. Dom isn't in this box. He's not Dom. Dom's not in that box. So the only question is the next episode when Dom will be in one of the boxes?